couple of universities. But today we have about more than 500 universities. In 2006, there were about 450 or little less than that. The colleges, we had about 700. Now we have more than 30,000 colleges. We had a couple of thousand of university and college teachers, but now we have close to 5 to 6 lakh teachers. And as a result of which, in the early 50s, we had a few lakh students going to the post-higher secondary education. Now we have about close to 15 million or 16 million, if you take even certificate and diploma. So huge progress, several-fold increase in the infrastructure in higher education. Now as a result of which, the access to higher education has improved. Now the educational scientists measure the access to higher education through an index called gross enrollment ratio or enrollment ratio. What do they do is to take the population of students in the age group of 18 to 23 and take the total population in that age group, 18 to 23, and what portion of that is going into the higher education. That is the indicator which tells you where do we stand with respect to higher education. And UGC did a lot of exercise. We use National Sample Survey data, we use population census data, we use the selected education statistics generated by UGC and Ministry of Home Resource Development. And however we do, it came out that if you take the strict definition of higher education as an indicator, enrollment ratio as an indicator for higher education, then our ratio was not more than 10%. If you push it further and you take certificate or diploma of 1 year or diploma of 2 years, the percentage will go to 13% or at the most 14%, population census will give you. So strictly speaking, our enrollment ratio was 10%, notwithstanding the huge expansion in the educational infrastructure. And that was the first problem that we posed before the Prime Minister, before the Ministry and before the Planning Commission as such. So among the 4 issues, the first issue was that look, our access to higher education is very low, notwithstanding the fact that we have a huge number of people who are into the higher education system. But in terms of ratio, we are lagging behind. All India average in 2003 was about 22%. Country in the middle income group was about 37, 35, 40%. Europe and USA, of course, begin with 50% and goes up to 80, 90. So compared to that, 10% is really low. So the first problem, how to increase the access of higher education in terms of enrollment ratio. Second issue that we identified was that while all India access ratio or enrollment ratio is around 10%, there are huge inter-regional and inter-social group disparities. You have 374 districts in the country where the enrollment ratio is below the national average, below 10%. There are 86 districts where the enrollment ratio is just 3%. Gujarat, Maharashtra, Kerala are relatively better compared to Orissa, Bihar and Madhya Pradesh. If you go to the intersocial group disparity, what you discover is that the access of the poor to higher education is 2% compared to the relatively rich, which is about 17, 18, 19%. The enrollment ratio is only 5% for scheduled tribes, 6% for scheduled caste, 7% for OBC, and substantially higher for others. So poor, non-poor and social groups. Muslim enrollment ratio is around 7% compared to Hindu, which is about 9, 10 or 11%. A little less than that. We can have a specific figure, but there are inter-religious disparities. Now that is one of the problems, that if we want to promote higher education, where do we promote? We cannot promote the education of those whose education level is already high. We have to promote the education of those whose access to higher education is low. So that was the second group, disparities, inter-regional disparities, inter-social group disparities, disparity between poor and non-poor. Third was quality. That the quality of education that we are giving has to be such that it makes a good person, we expand his capability and that his employability is increased. So quality was the major issue. Fourth issue was the relevant education. Are we giving the education which is relevant? And what constitutes relevant education? One simple indicator of relevant education is that whether it's see to employment or not. So employability of a person. But the other thing, the Bhikhu Patel was discussing with me today that our education should build up morality. And that is indeed one of the purpose of the higher education. See, the higher education not only gives scientific knowledge to the student. One of the purpose of higher education is give a principles and the knowledge which will enable the person to interpret reality in an appropriate manner, in a scientific manner. That is the first purpose. We cannot give the student a knowledge based on speculation. Much of our literature gives knowledge to the people which is based on speculations. Ye hoga, wo hoga. That doesn't help. You can interpret the realities provided you know the scientific principle of how does the things happen. इसने बताया, इस ग्रंथ में ये लिखा, उस ग्रंथ में वो लिखा, that won't help us. That's why we have stagnated quite a lot. So relevant education, higher education gives you a student a method and approach whereby he analyzes reality in a much more scientific manner. And what is scientific manner? Empiricism. That it is proved or disproved. Not because you tell me, not because it is written in the book, not because it is told by some mantra, but because it has to be proved by facts. That is what it will take us further. But giving scientific knowledge is one thing, but additionally giving morality. Because higher education system create citizens, create person. We don't manufacture commodities in higher education. You are in the college. You don't manufacture like a manufacturing. You create person. You give knowledge, but you give him morality. You give him principle of how he should deal with his life. And we create a person who will be democratic, secular, non-communal, respect for non-discrimination. That is how we create citizens. So higher education, the issue of relevant education is very, very important. So these were the four issues, that the challenge before higher education in the 11th plan, expansion of higher education because our enrollment ratio is low, but expansion with inclusiveness, that poor get the access, expansion to improve the quality, and expansion for relevant education. Today there are other issues in the higher education which the Honorable Minister Kapil Sibal and others are engaging, and that is autonomy of education system. The control that state exercise on education system and takes away its power. Accountability of the education institutions. The role of this regulatory authority like UGC, AICT, that is being questioned. Are they over-controlling the education institutions? Are being over-controlled by the government? So the issue of autonomy and accountability and autonomy of the education institution is something which is being discussed. And that is why there are 4 bills and regulations are under discussion. That is another issue that higher education faced. Now, I think we have, the issue before us was then as to how to deal with these 4 issues. I'll only take a couple of minutes. The first issue was, and I think the government was really convinced that, look, if we want to increase our enrollment ratio from 10 to 15%, or 20%, we need more colleges, we need more universities. If there are no university and colleges, where do the student will go? And you know the problem of admissions. The student with 65%, 70%, 80% do not get admission in the best institutions. And they are not bad students, they are good students. So I think the first thing was to pump more money into higher education, and a case was made out, and as a result of which we were allocating 0.37% of GDP on higher education. And the developed countries allocate at least minimum of 1% of GDP on higher education, and it goes up to 2.5%. We were allocating only 0.37. I think it is the initiative of the Prime Minister who imposed a cess, 2% cess, and got the resources for higher education. In 10th plan, the total allocation for higher education was 4,000 crore, which increased to 48,000 crore. It never happened in the history of higher education that higher education got such a boost. 10 to 11% increase. As a result of which, 30 central universities, 15 of them have been already set up. Gujarat is a beneficiary of one of them. It is there next door, Gandhinagar. Another 15s are coming, 1,000 polytechnics, 7 IIMs, 7 IITs. Put together, 1,464 educational institutions are to be set up during a period of 5-year plan, 2007 to 2010. Never in the history of higher education just such a steps has been taken that within a period of 5 years we have planned so much expansion. That is why it has been called education plan, or a second way of higher education. So the first thing is, I think we have put it properly, that we gave a huge allocation to higher education, and not that is enough, but it is quite substantial. And every state was told to give priority to higher education. I'll come to that later. And many of the states then have increased the allocation. Second, that while we do this expansion, we should do it in a manner that the relatively poor section of the society also get the access. Because we started becoming aware about the fact that the private entry into higher education has increased quite substantially. We gave a much larger space to private sector than many other countries have given. In Europe there are no private university. In UK there is no private university except Birmingham. In USA, only 5% of the student goes to the institution which are openly declared commercial undertaking. The rest of them are either endowment based or government. But we have given a lot of space to private education institutions. And that private education institution with the higher fees affected the access to the poor. And therefore, another focus that we placed was education. And I don't have a time to go into this, but the entire approach of inclusive education of the government under the 11th plan was give more money to the region and the district where the enrollment ratio is low. And that is what precisely has happened. 374 districts have been identified where the model college has been given. Gujarat has taken a lead and they got a couple of colleges. But more policies on intersocial group and poor, non-poor disparity reductions. There are schemes for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, 99 districts which are Muslim dominated districts, special grant is given to the colleges so that these boys and girls can get access, and there are several other schemes. I was discussing with your Vice Chancellor, with your principal. I always, wherever go, I ask casually. A college used to get 7 to 8 lakh earlier. When I asked him, he told me he got 60 to 70 lakh for the scheme and another 70 to 80 lakh for the development grant. Never in the history of this country that college has got more than a crore grant. Now this was because allocation to higher education has increased, but also there is an element of inclusiveness. Scholarship for girls, scholarship for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, focus on Muslims, so that those who lag behind, they come up to the expectation. Now I don't want to go into all those schemes, there are remedial coaching and several other things. Third issue was that we focus on quality also. In fact, we undertook a study You are familiar with that. There is something called NAC, National Accreditation Council, settled down in Bangalore. They have an office, that's a UGC's organization. It assesses the quality. And by that time they had assessed 140 universities and about 3,000 colleges. We got that data and studied. They grade the university and the colleges A, B, C. And we discovered that all those who were in C and B lacked in good infrastructure. They don't have good teacher, they don't have good physical infrastructure. And so a lot of funding has gone in building the infrastructure. The money that I was referring to this college is, the purpose was to improve the quality of physical infrastructure and others. But I will only make one point and then I'll stop on infrastructure, the quality, is that the teacher constitute the core of quality of any institution. And fortunately, the 6th Pay Commission coincide with the 11th ban, and we made an argument with the government that the teacher who is MA, teacher who is PhD, who is MPhil, if he is not given a good salary and give due shares, then the talent will not be attracted and we won't be able to retain the talent. Salary of an IAS officer whose minimum qualification is just undergraduate, he get more than a teacher who is a MA and a PhD, who spent 2 to 6 years more. I think government was convinced. And now under the 6th pay, teacher got a salary which is at a entry level in the university with a PhD get higher than the IAS officer. You know that. If you are a PhD and get into the university system, your salary is higher than that of an IAS officer, which remain higher for next 20 years. I think that was one of the purpose to improve the quality of the teacher and to retain them and give them some respectability as such. In fact, one of the most worst thing that had happened to our higher education system was that the various number of states had put a literal ban on the recruitment of the faculty. Can you imagine? If you don't have a teacher in the school, in the colleges, many of the department over a period of 15 years had turned into 2 faculty department, 3 faculty department.
No faculty also.
And we wrote letter after letter to the state that please take out this ban. If there are less people in the bureaucracy, the work may suffer but may not harm as much as if there is no teacher to teach the student. Outsourcing has increased, contact and ad hoc teaching has increased. Teaching is not a profession where we produce commodities, we produce people. And you require a close interaction with the teacher and the student. So I think we teacher finally got a better deal. Similarly, the relevant education. The government has set up a skill corporation, a major scheme to promote skill. I was sharing with Biko Bhai. There is a corporation which has come that we should develop courses in a manner that it gives skill to the student and their employability is increased and it serves the need of the economy. So I think, the higher education has got its due share and we have made the government and the people recognize that higher education need to be your due share. There is a close connection between economic growth and higher education, which I.G. Patel has pointed out and emphasized. That how human resources are an investment for economic growth. There are studies which pointed out that if you take the countries which have economically developed and you also simultaneously look at the enrollment ratio in higher education, you discover that the minimum that you require is 20% enrollment ratio in higher education. So that you have a human resource which will serve as a resource for the economic development of the country. But less than that will create problems. So I think for economic growth also we require to place and emphasis on higher education. There are other issues I share with you. The issue of autonomy, accountability, working of the regulatory authorities like UGC, AICT, their autonomy vis-a-vis the government. These are the issues which are dealt by the MHRD in a very serious manner ever since the new Education Minister Sika principle has come. But those are the issues which are being discussed. So I think the higher education has been placed on a higher recognition and agenda, and I am quite sure that in 10 years or so we will be able to see the difference in development of higher education. But there is only one point that I would like to say and stop, is that unlike many other venture, higher education is such that you require commitment. It's not like a worker who goes to the factory, work for 5 hours, 8 hours and come back. The job of a teacher is different than of a job of an industrial worker. You have to love your profession, you have to have a commitment, you have to love your teacher, student, you have to have a desire to impart your education and enjoy the success of the student, but also update yourself on a regular basis. If you don't read regularly and update yourself, you can't pass the latest knowledge to the student. When I was teaching in college, I was very young at that time, and one of the very eminent professor came and he was asked that, what is your message to the young teacher? So he said, the only message is that after your class is over, you turn off your notes so that you read it once again afresh. So I think it's a major responsibility of teacher. And same is the case with those who are in the education institutions, those who promote education institutions. Bikubai was telling me his commitment for the poor, and he doesn't allow any student to go without education. If he get admission, if he doesn't have money, we support him. I think education is a public need and public good. We know that. That's how Europe has entire higher education under public domain. So if the private player has to come here, they have to come with that enlightenment and that dedication that education is not something where here we can get some surpluses. Education gives you surpluses in terms of educating people, not in terms of money. So there is a need for huge philanthropy in higher education. And I think I get increasingly worried on that count, that we should not look for higher education more as a commercial exercise rather than a social service. I think these are some of the aspect that we need, that those who want to set up institution, those who want to be teacher and administrative education, I think it's a different field. Dedication and concern and service is very, very necessary. Well, friends, I would like to stop it here. I